It's Friday. It is RamView.
It's hot out there. Let's blow it off the line of scrimmage. Headline,
Live from the studios of the Ram Cave, I'm Joe Terosian, and this is RamView, the May 31st, 2024 edition, brought to you by Kistler Law Firm. Injured in an auto accident? Need help? Got questions? Call Kistler Law at 661-206-6990. That's 661-206-6990. And check out KistlerLawFirm.com. That's one word, KistlerLawFirm.com. Kistler Law, they've been fighting for you since 92. And by Temple City Auto Repair, having some auto issues, get yourself some John and Henry at TempleCityAutoRepair.com. And of course, by Granite Ridge Christian Camp, a place where your life can change. It is warmed up a little bit. I don't like it. I like it a little bit colder, but hey, what are we going to do? It's the last day of May, and stuff is slow. It's leaking out here and there. Talk about Quentin Lake not playing the star position. Talk about the Rams making a move for Justin Jefferson. And again, what I love talking about on this day, it's Andy Robustelli Day, and I will talk about that legendary Ram here in a little bit. But first, so I got up this morning. What I usually do is I get up and I check my messages, and every once in a while I get a link on Facebook. There's a group there. It's a really pretty good group. If you are on FB, it's called NFL Football 1970, the 70s NFL football, and really interesting stuff there. And, you know, another thing too, I learned a lot there. So they were just talking about Hall of Fame, and they were talking about how, there's not a whole lot of representation for the Dolphins and their no-name defense in the Hall of Fame. And it just kind of struck me. It wasn't like a bolt of lightning. I'm sipping my coffee. I'm getting prepped for this morning. And I thought, you know what the NFL should do is they should take a team that is called the no-name defense, right? You got your Vern Den Herter, your Bob Hines, your Manny Fernandez, your Doug Swift, your Mike Colon. You got those guys. You got your, Nick Bonacani. You got your Jake Scott, your Dick Anderson. Hey, pretty good, huh? I can name off those guys. Tim Foley, and Bill Stanfill. Sorry, I'm just having fun. But that was called the no-name defense. And maybe they should just have an induction for legendary defenses like that in the Hall of Fame. Just like we're going to induct the no-name defense. And of course, my mind went immediately to why not the Rams, right? You got Merlin Olsen in there. You got Deacon Jones in there, but Lamar Lundy and Rosie Greer were part of that. And then you could also say Roger Brown, and you could also say Coy Bacon. When you get past Deacon Jones and Merlin Olsen, I don't really consider Jack Youngblood part of the fearsome foursome. But that would be kind of cool. I think that would be a nice wrinkle to the NFL Hall of Fame, because the Dolphins went to 3 consecutive Super Bowls. 3. Now, it was funny. I was listening. This isn't a slam on Coward, but I was surprised he missed it. He was talking a couple weeks ago. It's funny. My mind just pops up with it now. He was talking about NFL dynasties, and he went from the Packers to the Steelers, and he skipped right over the Dolphins. And from 71 through 73, the Dolphins were in 3 consecutive Super Bowls. And, of course, they won Super Bowl 7 and 8. And so I'm just they get overlooked a lot, and because of their defense, it's the no-name defense, and people say they were too boring. But I'll take that kind of boring if I get 3 Super Bowl appearances consecutively, and so why not put the no-name defense in there? It was so iconic. I'm not worried about the steel curtain, and I was reminded today that only Mean Joe Green of the defensive front line of the steel curtain's there, but I don't know. When we say steel curtain, do we just mean only the front line, or do we mean the whole defense, right? Because Jack Ham's in there, Jack Lambert's in there, Donnie Shell's in there, Mel Blunt's in there, and I got a phone across the room that's ringing, and I'm not going to answer it. So there we go. So the no-name defense, the steel curtain, I think the no-name defense should be put in. I think every Steeler on the planet's been put in. So you don't have to put the steel curtain in. You don't have to put the doomsday defense in, because they got a lot of guys that are in the Hall of Fame. But no-name defense, fearsome foursome, that'd be kind of a cool kind of a cool deal, right? Wouldn't that be kind of cool? I think it would be. All right. So let's keep rolling on here into some Ram stuff. Again, not a lot of breaking stuff. There's talk about the star position, the slot position, and we'll get to that. I just want to knock out a couple of things here. I know another thing that's been buzzed all around the internet in regards to the Rams has been Justin Jefferson. And would the Rams make a deal for Justin Jefferson? What would it cost them? And honestly, I have no interest in Justin Jefferson. I don't think he's necessary. Do I think he's great? Absolutely. Do I think he's necessary? No. He's looking for a payday. We got into it. No, I'm not going to say we got into it. A discussion with someone from Coach Brown, who's a 49er fan. And he was talking about signing Brandon Ayuk for the 49ers. Brandon Ayuk's market value is 26 rocks a season. Unless Cooper Kupp's ready to leave right now, we're kind of committed a lot of money to Cooper Kupp. You're not going to make a deal for Justin Jefferson and then bring him in. I'm not saying he wouldn't help, but I just don't think he's necessary. If you look at the 2023 and 2022 Chiefs, who was their big name receiver, right? Rashee Rice, you could replace him. Juju Smith-Schuster, they replaced him. In 2021, Cooper Kupp was the best receiver in football, but I don't think we ever really think of Cooper Kupp in that Justin Jefferson, Tyreek Hill, Devontae Adams type of thing. I don't anyway, in terms of him. But Cooper Kupp, he's great, but he's not one of those. We pay him like he's a frontline receiver, but he's not that uber talented Justin Jefferson, Randy Moss type, right? And then you got to go back to Tyreek Hill in 2019. Michael, who is it? Oh my goodness. You got Tyreek Hill, you got the Patriots in 2018, 2016, 2014. They didn't have any real big league receiver. They didn't win a Super Bowl with Randy Moss. The Seahawks didn't have a big wide receiver when they won their Super Bowl. Philly didn't have one. The Broncos only needed their defense. And even if they had something beyond Demaryius Thomas and those guys, they couldn't have got the ball to him because Peyton Manning's arm was shot. You don't need that glamour receiver. And the only part that bugged me while I'm really mentioning it is I get a little queasy when I hear Ram fans talking about, hey, it'll make the offense more exciting. That was the argument when I was growing up, is the Rams weren't exciting enough. Even though they were winning all the time in the 70s, they're just not exciting enough. They don't have enough motion. They don't have enough this. And it's LA and we need glamour and all this kind of stuff. And I think Carol Rosenblum drank some of that Kool-Aid and he wanted some of that. And honestly, I think winning is the best of anything. And I don't really want to bring in a player in because he's exciting. I want to bring a player in because he helps. And also, when you look at the Rams receiving room, they've got the players that fit the Ram scheme, that fit the Ram model, that fit the Ram brand, right? We're going to talk about Xavier Worthy here. Do you think Xavier Worthy should be a Ram? Do you think maybe why the Rams weren't interested in Xavier Worthy? We'll get to that in a minute. I just don't think you need that big line receiver. This phone is going off over here, and I probably should answer it, but I don't want to go off camera. Real quick here, we know, man, I got to get this phone. Guys, would you forgive me? This is so unprofessional. Sorry about this. Okay, it's a Stan Kroenke. He's telling me that he wants the Rams to be more exciting this year. So there you go. I apologize for that. Cam Curl's going to start at safety this year. I think he better start with the money they're paying him, even though it's only for 2 years. But here's the interesting thing. You've been seeing this thing where they're running Russ Yeast, Darian Kendrick at the star position, the slot position, and a possibility that Quentin Lake would go back to a standard safety spot. And it makes you wonder, they want to keep Lake on the field, and maybe Cam Kitchens they don't want to throw Cam Kitchens to the NFL fire too soon. So that's probably one thing. And so I thought that was interesting because I thought, we thought Lake did a great job last year, and Kendrick has not played in much slot corner. For the record, Kendrick only played 8 snaps in that slot position last year. 7 of them came in week 18, and he only played one snap in that position in 2022. He is a classic boundary corner, maybe a wide corner. And so he just hasn't played that slot position. Kobe Durant has played that, but he wasn't as effective as he was outside. And again, who are you going to run in there? You're going to run Kendrick and Yeast and Durant there. I say put Quentin Lake there. And if you got a problem, you want to wait for Kitchens to develop. Put Russ Yeast back at safety. He's respectable, and then let Kitchens grow into the position. This is an unbelievable morning or afternoon. My phone just buzzing. Unbelievable. All right, real quick here. The buzz also this week was about Kyrie Williams being graded so low by PFF. I didn't really care, but I thought how interesting it was that Matthew Stafford was graded 7th behind Dak Prescott at 6th. Matthew Stafford was graded like 14th or 15th a year ago, but they got him still behind Dak Prescott. Tell me what Dak Prescott's ever done that would put him ahead of Matthew Stafford, right? Herbert, Allen, Mahomes are all ahead of him, and I get it, as is Joe Burrow, even though, Burrow lost to the Rams in the Super Bowl and he's always injured. Also ahead of Stafford is Lamar Jackson, who's worked himself into a really good, competent, great quarterback. I would have him 6th. I wouldn't have Lamar Jackson as the second highest quarterback. He's got limitations, and I don't know why anyone wants to talk about them, but he does simply have limitations. That might be a good question for RamView fans. Would you trade Matthew Stafford for Lamar Jackson? Seriously, would you really, after seeing what they're both capable of? Around the NFL and other places, I see some questions building, guys. Sorry, I've just had a crazy afternoon right here. I will get to those questions. But did you see rookie Chiefs wide receiver Xavier Worthy making a video with his girlfriend, flashing his bling, making it rain? I'm sure that's exactly what the Hunt family wanted to see. Sure, it's exactly what Brent Veach, their GM, wanted to see. And what a dim bulb. I mean, he's probably an all-world talent. Maybe he's a nice kid. But what a dim bulb to not know what's going on with your franchise right now with Rashee Rice, let alone a few other things. And then you make a video like that. That doesn't bode well, right? That doesn't bode well, especially when you look at the history. Tyreek Hill had a history, right? Kareem Hunt had a history. Now, I give the Chiefs credit. They take chances on these players. It's like Andy Reid is the Jerry Tarkanian of the NFL. But what a brain-dead move by Xavier Worthy. And there was one mock draft that had the Rams taking Xavier Worthy at number 19. Aren't you glad that didn't happen? Could you ever – when was the last time you saw a Ram player making a video and making it rain? It just speaks to the culture and the brand and the environment that the Rams have created. So, pass on Xavier Worthy. And pass. Bears are doing hard knocks. I've been calling it soft knocks the last few years. Part of the reason it's called hard knocks is because people lose their job, right? And they stopped wanting to show people losing their job. And invariably, everybody ends up on the practice squad, and you lose interest in it, right? And the Bears are this year. And so I don't even know. I kind of half watch them. I go back to those early years. I'll never forget the one I saw with the Ravens right off their Super Bowl. And they had drafted Ortiz Jenkins out of Arizona. He was a Long Beach kid. And shows him leaving home, going to Ravens camp for the summer. And within a couple of weeks, they cut him. And they bring him into Brian Billick's office. And he says, hey, we're going to have to let you go. And he says, we love you, we like you and everything, but it's just not working out right now. And then he asks the kid, he says, do you have your degree? And to hear Brian Billick ask Ortiz Jenkins if he had his degree was saying, you're not playing professional football, kid. And he said, and Jenkins said he did. And he says, well, you might want to get that worked out. And I think Jenkins ended up playing a few games in Canada, and then his career was over. That was brutal, man. That was harsh, right? But that's hard knocks. That's what hard knocks should be. And it's what it was for the first 5, 6, 7, 8 years. Then everyone went soft. And you know what? You're getting paid for it. I know people are saying, oh, don't be so cruel. But that's the idea. They're supposed to be showing you what's happening on the inside. Anyway, around the NFL and other places, and those other places, I am rooting for the Mavericks over the Celtics. Although I'm disconnected from basketball, old hatreds run deep, and I do not want to see the Celtics win another title. Doncic and Kyrie Irving are both killers. Jason Tatum is soft. He's the poster dude for today's NBA. Off the chart physical gifts and talent, but he's soft when it counts the most, right? Boston has more talent, but this is one of those extremely rare times I'm going to be rooting for a team from Dallas. There you go. I'm Joe Tarosian, and my phone is blowing up right now, and it doesn't look like anything is happening in terms of the world coming to an end. People just decided, oh, Joe's on the air at 5 o'clock, so let's start calling him. And it's my bad because I didn't turn my phone off. There you go. I've been a sports writer for 21 years, one of the founding members of Mid Valley Sports, and now I do RamView, thanks to our sponsors at Kistler Law, and I write books. And thank you guys for your support there. It really helps us, and that allows me to stay on the air because I do my day job as I pastor a small church in Burbank called Burbank Faith Nazarene, and so we are also here on YouTube at Burbank Faith Virtual and BurbankFaithVirtual.com and Burbank Faith Virtual all across social media. So thank you so much for joining us on this day. Okay, here we go. Finally, I get to answer some questions and get to it. Tim Burns, Cowboys and Rams are practicing together. Stafford can get Dak's success to rub off of him. Yeah. Okay, there you go. When they talk about eliminating the schedule, eliminating preseason games, they say those joint practices are the future eventually what it's going to be. So they are interesting. Tim Burns, why mess with the wide receiver core? Jefferson is nice, but I like our squad. Preach. I'm all with you, Mr. Burns. Steve Ramirez, fearsome foursome too. Youngblood, Olsen, Brooks, and Dreyer. I'm with you, Steve, on that, but I don't remember them being called fearsome foursome two or fearsome foursome, and I thought there were weak illusions in the 70s, so those guys being a new version of the fearsome foursome. Manuel Correa, what's happening? Manuel Correa, what is happening is that everyone forgot that I'm on the air at 5 o'clock, and I foolishly didn't turn off my phone. So I was terrible. So forgive me. Very unprofessional. Tim Burns, we are the least athletic team in the league. Heart is a muscle, so we are just fine. Yeah, I saw that. I just don't even click on those when you see those things. Just reads like desperate dead period material. Tim Burns and Manuel saying hi to each other on my time. There we go. Manuel Correa, I think we get Justin Simmons. I before the draft, I thought so. But they drafted Kitchens 99 overall. They're getting their third year out of Yeast and Lake. I think it's just a question of making these Tetris pieces fit. I don't think they're going to touch Simmons unless there's an injury. At least that's what I think right now. We'll see. USA X-Pac. Steve, remember Dreyer's quote about lighting his hair on fire? I do not remember that one. Tim Powers, blasphemy. Cup is not outstanding. Cup is outstanding, but you don't look at him the way you looked at Randy Moss. You don't look at him the way you looked at, you look at Justin Jefferson and the way you look at Devontae Adams, these physical freaks. Not saying that those guys didn't work hard, but when you look at Cooper Kupp, you have to say is self-made. Precision route runner, best shape. He's always in top shape. He's an outstanding player, but you don't think of him as an uber outstanding talent, Mr. Powers. So I don't mean to upset you. Manuel Correa, Dreyer, and Youngblood goats all the way right there with you. Willie Bowen, LA Rams defense is giving opposing quarterbacks nightmares this season. I agree. I would say this about that too is I don't know about you, but I'm getting really sick now. I'm going to look like I'm eating a lot of crow if something bad happens this first month of the season. And again, this could be blasphemy as well. I'm tired of hearing how the Rams are going to be so wounded without Aaron Donald. Now, maybe if they didn't invest in Verse and Fisk the way they did at the top of this draft, I think we should have some concerns. But the Rams have invested, and there have been payoffs right now. There have been payoffs with Byron Young, payoffs with Kobe Turner, and you got Bobby Brown still in the fold, and then you brought in Fisk and you brought in Verse. I don't think this team is going to suffer as much without Aaron Donald as I think a lot of lazy sports folk think they are. AMS, Bill, I'd rather upgrade at left tackle than wide receiver. I think we're going to be okay at left tackle, but I fully agree with you. If we're going to make that kind of a spend, then I'd rather spend it at left tackle. And here's the interesting thing. Dotson, Avila, and Jackson are sewed up through 26, right? They're sewed up through the 2026 season. These next 3 years, they're sewed up. We don't know what Havenstein's going to have in the tank, but you also got you bring in someone at left tackle, then that secures that offensive line through this window, and that window is open as long as Matthew Stafford is here. So Willie Bowen, Stafford is a Ram for life. I agree. Willie Bowen agreed AM. Okay. Tim Burns, disagree on Cup. He gets injured, but his yak is elite. Having a 9-game season and still go. Yeah, I know. I'm taking heat for this. But do you understand where I'm coming from? Does Cooper Kupp carry the measurables of Randy Moss and someone like Justin Jefferson? Does he? He just doesn't. Would I rather have him than Randy Moss and Justin Jefferson? Yeah, because I think he does a lot more than those guys. I think he's a more complete player than those guys. So I'm not asking. I'd rather have Cooper Kupp than those guys. But I don't think the view is around the league. And I think in terms of fans, how can you be saying if Cooper Kupp is viewed that way, how can there be this little buzz and chorus coming out that the Rams would be much more exciting with Justin Jefferson? It's all of our opinions here. It's all of our opinions. Let's see. Steve Ramirez. I'm rooting for Dallas to sweep NBA and NHL titles. I've lost track of the NHL after the Kings, man. So if the Stars need that, then I'm all in. Willie Bowen. If Kupp is injured, Nakua, Robinson, Atwell, and rookies, LA Rams drafted can fill that void. Yeah, and they're speaking really highly of Jordan Whittington. Every time you turn it on, everyone's talking about Jordan Whittington. And I think the Rams are high on Jordan Whittington to get him more reps. That's probably why Skoranek was dispatched to Houston so early, even before the OTAs. What was that, May 12th, that Skoranek was sent out of town? Let's see here. Willie Bowen, Dallas Cowboys should practice in Dallas Fort. Yeah, they've been in Oxnard ever since I was a kid, man. I've never gone out there. I don't know if I want to, but yeah. Manuel Correa, can't wait to see my guy Brennan Carnage Jackson. Oh, there is a name. There's a name that I forgot to mention. Brennan Jackson. Yeah. Tim Burns, difference is speed. I think you're talking about Jefferson, Moss, and Kupp there, and that is a deal. Tim Powers, just repent about Kupp. He's going to thrive this year. I want Cooper Kupp to thrive this year. I think the fact the Rams believe Cooper Kupp is going to thrive this year, that they waited until the 6th round, was it 7th? I think it was 6th, to draft Jordan Whittington, right? They waited so long, and that to me said the Rams are very confident about their wide receiver room and Kupp's return to health. And again, Stafford had a year with Nakua last year where he's comfortable. He's had 3 years throwing the ball to Kupp. He's comfortable, and boy, he really felt comfortable with Robinson. And I think I just wouldn't mess, as has been shared, I just wouldn't mess with this receiving trio right now. I just wouldn't at all. And I'm not anti-Kupp. Okay. Dano, how do you feel about these teams training in our backyard? New Orleans, Las Vegas, and Dallas. Well, I could care less about Dallas. Vegas is one thing, but New Orleans upsets me because I do have a little bit of a connections at UC Irvine. I got a brother that lives in Irvine, and I got a guy in my church that heads maintenance. He's like the chief of all the maintenance at UC Irvine, and he's told me in the past he can get me into places I want to be. And so I've always been feeling like I've got this advantage at UC Irvine. Now we're going to Loyola Marymount and Gersten Pavilion, and I don't have any idea. I don't have any connections. And plus, driving to the west side is a major bummer, right? Have you ever had to drive from the east side to the west side? It's no bueno, man. It's no fun. So I'm not too happy about them being there and the Saints being in the Southland. There's bad mojo around the Saints anyway, right? It's gross. I hate the Saints. Steve Ramirez, FYI, Dallas has trained in Ventura County since the 1960s. Yeah, I knew ever since I was a football fan they were in Oxnard. So, yeah, they've been there for a while. In fact, I have a friend who's a pastor at the church in Oxnard, and he showed me that area where they go. And I asked him, does traffic kind of pick up this time of year? And he was telling me, yeah, it does kind of pick up because there's a lot of Cowboy fans out there. All right, cool. As we keep on pressing on, man, you guys are stuck with me after that dismal start. All right, so there wasn't a whole lot of stuff to talk about. So I pulled out my Andy Robustelli thread. I started doing this show, I think in 2022. I started writing a column, Rams column for my website. And I was just looking for a bigger payday or bigger payoff with the work we were putting in. So I just decided to do the webcast, and that's what we're doing now. But one of the things I put together way back when was the Andy Robustelli thread. And what I mean by that is that the Rams took Andy Robustelli in the draft in 1951. They traded him a few years later, but the pieces they received in return and then in turn sent those pieces back out and acquired more, that thread from Andy Robustelli stretched all the way to the 1990s with Flipper Anderson, right? Because draft choices and trades have a residue, and that residue can create a thread that will stretch decades and seasons. So on this date in 2011, unfortunately, NFL legend Andy Robustelli died at the age of 85 due to complications following surgery. Robustelli was a late round pick, a 19th round pick of the Rams in 1951, but he played on the 51 championship team, played on the championship, the team that went to the championship game in 55, and then he was traded to the Giants. In all, he played 174 games in his career. He only missed one. 7-time Pro Bowl selections, All-Pro 6 times, Hall of Famer. He was inducted to the Hall of Fame in 1951, along with Jim Brown, Y.A. Tittle, Norm Van Brocklin. So his creds are there, right? But this is where it gets interesting. The Rams traded Andy Robustelli to the New York Giants in July of 1956 for a first-round pick in 1957. That pick was 11th overall, and the Rams took Del Schaffner as a replacement for the retiring Tom Fears and the aging Elroy Hirsch. Schaffner was terrific for a Ram team that was in decline the last half of the 50s. Then in 1960, Frank Gifford got blasted by the Philadelphia Eagle linebacker Chuck Bednarik, which is considered one of the most violent hits in NFL history. Gifford missed the entire 1961 season for a Giants team that was at that time perennially contending for an NFL title. So in August of 61, the Giants offered the Rams a number 1 draft pick for Del Schaffner, right? And so the Rams made the deal and took Roman Gabriel with the 2nd overall selection in the 1962 draft. So Andy Robustelli led to Roman Gabriel. Gabriel was the Rams starting quarterback for much of the 60s, developed into a star, 4 Pro Bowls, league MVP in 69. After the team took a tumble in 72, Gabriel was traded to the Eagles. So I just did the review. Robustelli led to Schaffner. Schaffner led to Gabriel. So Gabriel is sent to the Eagles in June, about a week from now in 73. In June of 73, Gabriel was sent to the Eagles for Harold Jackson, a short yardage fullback named Tony Baker. The Rams also received first-round picks in 1974, 75, and a third-round selection in 1975. This is another reason why Don Klosterman should be in the Hall of Fame. Harold Jackson becomes a Ram legend at wide receiver. Touchdown Tony Baker scores 12 touchdowns in 2 seasons just doing mop-up work inside the 5, right? The draft picks the Rams acquired in that trade with Jackson where they acquired Jackson and sent Gabriel to Philly was John Cappelletti, Dennis Hara, and another guy in the 3rd round named Dan Nugent. So in review, Robustelli led to Schaffner, Gabriel, and then Harold Jackson. In 1978, Harold Jackson was traded to New England Patriots for a 3rd round pick in 79 and a 4th round pick in 1980. In 1980, that 4th round pick was paired with tight end Charlie Young and a 3rd rounder to San Francisco. The Rams got back the number 58 pick overall in the draft and took Jarrell Thomas, as well as the number 63 overall in the 1983 draft. With Dickerson and Barry Redden in the fold, Thomas in 1983 was traded to Kansas City Chiefs for starting cornerback Eric Harris. Harris played 3 seasons for the Rams, 2 as a starter before a bad back injury forced him to retirement. That number 63 pick in 1983, obtained in that Charlie Young deal, was sent to the Giants for a guy named Gary Jeter. Gary Jeter played 6 seasons for the Rams as a rotational player, and he collected 45 sacks. Now, also part of that deal that brought Harold Jackson to the Rams along with those draft picks was John Cappelletti. Cappelletti became the starting fullback in 76, played with the Rams through 78. He missed all of the 79 season with the injury. In 1980, he was traded to the Chargers for a 2nd round pick in 1982. That 1982 2nd rounder was included with 3 others and sent to the Redskins for the 14th overall pick in 1982. And the Rams drafted Barry Redden. Redden never becomes a star for the Rams Eric Dickerson comes in the following year, right? But he's with the Rams, and in 1987, Redden was traded to the Chargers for Buford McGee and a second-round draft pick. That draft pick became Flipper Anderson. Pretty interesting. A little sidelight to that, Dennis Hara played 13 seasons for the Rams and goes to Pro Bowls in his final 2 seasons, 6 Pro Bowls overall. The Dan Nugent thread, that third-round pick back in '75, that was the result of the Harold Jackson trade. He was an offensive lineman. He lasted 1 season for the Rams and was traded to the Washington Redskins for a second and third-round picks in 1980. The second-round pick turned into Irv Pankey, who was the Rams' starting left tackle throughout the 80s, right? In 1991, Pankey was traded to the Colts for 2 draft picks. In 1992, 57th overall, the Rams took Mark Boutte out of LSU, and he became a 2-year starter at defensive tackle. In 94, the Rams waived Mark Boutte. On February 16th, 1995, Flipper Anderson became an unrestricted free agent and signed with the Indianapolis Colts. And the thread that began with Andy Robustelli in 1951 came to an end with Flipper Anderson in 1995. Now, people will think you're gone down the nerd path there, Joe, but that was pretty fascinating stuff to me, that all those players became something more, right? They became something that you turn them into something else. Like Randy Robustelli was flipped into Del Schaffner. Del Schaffner was flipped into Roman Gabriel. Gabriel was flipped into Harold Jackson. Harold Jackson was flipped into Dennis Hara, John Capoletti, and ultimately Irv Pankey, right? And then all those other deals coming off that trade that eventually led to Flipper Anderson at the end. Fascinating stuff that, these threads and these residues of these trades last forever. And it was just something I wanted to get out because this is the day that, unfortunately, Andy Robustelli passed away, but he had an imprint on the Rams some 40 years after he was drafted by the Rams. So there you go. That might be a little nerdville, but hey, it's a slow day, and I wanted to get that stuff in. There we go. Let's look at some other stuff this day in Rams history. I promise I'll get to you. I'll get to the questions there, guys. On this day in 2011, Andy Robustelli passed away at the age of 85. Tomorrow, June 1st, in 1982, at the age of 29, Pat Hayden retired after attending minicamp in May and seeing Burt Jones, because the Rams had traded for Burt Jones. Hayden decided to retire. And I know it comes across on this show that I hate Pat Hayden. I don't know if I hate Pat Hayden. I don't hate Pat Hayden. I just think he was miscast, and I think too much was put on him. And I think the USC connections and the blonde golden boy of California, he just wasn't the guy. He just never was going to be the guy. He's the Colt McCoy of the 70s, right? Hayden, appeared in 65 games for the Rams, started 55, 52 touchdown passes, 60 interceptions. He wasn't very good in the playoffs. He was 2-3 in 5 playoff games, 4 interceptions, 4 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. He had some real bad games. The Mud Bowl, the NFC Championship game. He did, thanks to the defense, win in Dallas in '76, and he was the quarterback on record when the Rams blew out the Vikings in the first round of '78, a year too late. He also outlasted James Harris, Ron Jaworski, Joe Namath, Vince Ferragamo, and in a way, Dan Pastorini. And he retired at the age of 29. He retired young, but this guy was a Rhodes Scholar. He immediately went to CBS, became a college football commentator. So he's had a great life. And again, I don't mean to slam him all the time, but man, he was a smart quarterback, and that's how he lasted so long. But he just wasn't, the Rams were fooling themselves. I shared that before. Let's see. On June the 2nd, which is this Sunday where we won't be on the air, in 2010, the Rams decided not to tender safety O.J. Atogwe and let him leave as a free agent. I believe he went to the Redskins. And also on June the 2nd in 2004, the Rams cut ties with former MVP, Super Bowl champion Kurt Warner, and they released him on June the 2nd, 2004. A couple of birthdays just to look at on Sunday. This Sunday, Lawrence McCutcheon turns 74, name to remember there. Former Ram quarterback. Does anyone remember Austin Davis? He had his little run there in 2014. Had 12 touchdown passes, 9 interceptions, completed over 60% of his passes. But I think he's best noted for when Jared Cook pushed him out of the way. And, I wasn't a big Jared Cook fan, and maybe it was just Jared Cook didn't see him or whatever, didn't know what he was seeing. But Jared Cook was just a guy that just bugged the snot out of me, because I always had this thing where for every big catch he made, he always gave 2 or 3 back. And the way he pushed Austin Davis, I thought, you know what, dude, you're playing with some really crappy quarterbacks, and I don't think Austin Davis was as lousy as everyone says he was. And that was his only really hurrah in the NFL. Austin Davis was with Cleveland in 2015, made an appearance with Seattle in 2017, and now he probably sells insurance. But also on this Sunday coming up, turning 54 is former Rams center Andy McCullum. Does anyone remember Andy McCullum? Greatest show on turf teams. He was a backup for that team in 99, became a starter the following year. He was the Rams starter at center for about 8 seasons. One year he played left guard, but he did not miss a start between 2000 and 2005. He was pretty good for a UDFA out of Toledo. Now, he was a free agent that the Rams had signed. I think he spent 4 years in New Orleans. But Andy McCullum wore number 67 mostly when he was with the Rams. He's a forgotten guy. He did a really solid job at center. I tick off the centers for the Rams: Ken Iman, Rick Saw, and, of course, Doug Smith. And then there's that little gap. You get Bern Brostick, and then it's kind of this hole there. And no one really gives enough, maybe because they were in St. Louis, but no one really looks at that Ram offensive line beyond Orlando Pace. And, that Ram offensive line for the greatest show on turf years was pretty solid. Again, one of the best jobs done was Fred Miller at right tackle in the Super Bowl. After getting torched by Javon Curse during the regular season, Fred Miller held him in check in Super Bowl 34, and that played a huge part in why the Rams won that game. So there we go. All right, the 36-minute mark here. Let's go check some messages here. So Willie Bowen, Dallas Cowboys can practice at any college in Dallas or Texas. Yeah, I think you get the breeze. If you're in Oxnard, you're in that Ventura County, you get the breeze where that heat in Texas can be pretty stifling. Yes, I agree. We hate the Dallas Cowboys. I'll root for them when they play the Russians, okay? But that's about it. Rick Mayer. Rick Mayer has been a Rams fan since 73 when I saw Lawrence McCutcheon foot the first time. Okay. Hey, my first full season was 73. And so, hey, I'm a McCutcheon fan too. Willie Bowen. Dennis Hara's wife was a Sunbeam cheerleader and was on Three's Company TV series as Cindy Snow, Jenny Lee Harrison. Was Dennis Hara married to Jenny Lee Harrison? I know who Jenny Lee Harrison is. I didn't know they were married. Manuel Correa. He had to play the good Cowboy teams in the playoffs. I think you're talking about Pat Hayden there. I guess so. Bill, who was a better coach, Bill Walsh or Chuck Noll? I think Chuck Noll, Chuck Noll had his run, but after Super Bowl 14, it was pretty mediocre because by then the loosening of the passing game after 78 really opened up the offenses. And if you notice, they never really got back to where they were. And, in some ways, you could say Chuck Noll's last decade in Pittsburgh, in some ways, mirrored what it looked like with Belichick at the end with the Patriots the last 5 years after Brady departed, because they moved on from Bradshaw. They never really replaced Bradshaw. Cliff Stout, Mark Malone, Brister, Bubby Brister, and it just didn't work out. And then they brought in Neil O'Donnell and stuff. But Neil O'Donnell was for Bill Cowher. So it just didn't work out. They just did not get the guys they needed, and they kept missing on draft picks like Walter Abercrombie and others. And so it just didn't work out. And so I think that model pre-78, Chuck Noll fit the NFL, but Bill Walsh, going from then forward to present, I think the Walsh model is still alive and well, right? The West Coast offense, you can still see elements of it everywhere. So yeah, I'd have to lean Walsh right now. Bio Zio, Ground Chuck. Well, Ground Chuck, if you remember back in the 70s, people said the Rams offense was boring. It was McCutcheon, Bertelsen, and then McCutcheon wide, and that was it, right? Unless you had to obviously pass on third down. And so yeah, I remember them saying the Rams offense was boring, and I didn't know any better. To me, we were winning, and I just didn't understand. I could not understand when Chuck Knox left. Of course, I know more stuff now, but at the time, it's like, why are they messing with Chuck Knox? I just didn't get it. And I was still hot because they got rid of James Harris, and I didn't appreciate, although I hated him at the time, but I think they misused Joe Namath. I think they could have gotten better clicks out of Joe Namath if they had an offense that would have worked for him. But then they shouldn't have brought in Joe Namath. They should have kept James Harris, or maybe kept the faith with Ron Jaworski, because obviously Dick Vermeil knew what they had in Jaworski, even if the Rams didn't, right? That's true. There we go. Okay, Steve Ramirez. Steelers could have drafted Marino, but instead drafted Senior Sack, who retired after a car crash. Oh man, that's right. Everybody passed on. Where did Marino go? 27th overall. He was the 6th quarterback of the 6 quarterbacks taken in the first round in '83, and everyone thought he had a drug issue and stuff. Yeah, they could have had him. How different would have been, because Mark Malone did get a little bit of benefit late in career from John Stallworth, and then they had Lewis Lips, and so they had some opportunities there. But yeah, that's interesting. I thought Don Shula did a really nice pivot. They pounded the ball in the early '70s, but if you remember, Dan Marino came in '83. I think Strock started the first couple games, and then Marino came in. He threw 20 touchdown passes his rookie year, and Shula seemed to bend with the times, and where I don't think Noel did. Dano, my Rams Mount Rushmore: Donald, Aaron Donald, Deacon Jones, Stafford, and Falk. Stafford already, all right, and Falk. Yeah, it's going to be interesting, when you start talking about Stafford, right? If the Rams make even just another Super Bowl appearance, you start getting into the area. Okay, how great? Because when do you take the identification of Matthew Stafford off Detroit and place it with the Rams, right? When do you move him from there to here, right? That's an interesting one. One Super Bowl, I don't know if it does it, but if he's to get 2 Super Bowls and he gets another Super Bowl win and maybe a Super Bowl appearance in, then I think it does slowly start to change. It's not like it's Brady, who had 6 Super Bowls in New England. You're never going to move off that. But yeah, Stafford's interesting. And is it funny? Am I wrong to say that maybe sometimes we undervalue Marshall Faulk? Is it possible? We've got our allegiance to McCutcheon. I'm a Wendell Tyler guy. We all saw Eric Dickerson, amongst the greatest who ever played. And then we all have this. I have a soft spot for Steven Jackson because it's so unfair the way his career played out. Todd Gurley came and went so quick. Does Marshall Faulk get overlooked? And he played 6 seasons with the Rams, 7 seasons with the Rams, and he was a consummate team player. He receded and still kept playing while Jackson ascended. But Marshall Faulk was a great Ram, and sometimes I feel like we don't talk about him. So Dano, that's a kind of a good call there, talking about Marshall Faulk a little bit. Manuel Creer, got to put Jack Youngblood on the mountain. He played with a broken fibula. There you go. I think we can give Jack Youngblood his own Lincoln Memorial, right? Kind of like you got Mount Rushmore, and then we could give Jack Youngblood the Lincoln Memorial. Let him sit down off that broken leg, and we could go there and just be in adoration. Rick Mayer, I think Mike Jones should be on the Rams Mount Rushmore. I don't know if he should be on the Rams Mount Rushmore, but if Stan calls me again, there should be a statue of Mike Jones outside of SoFi. There should be a statue there of him outside of SoFi. Steve Ramirez, I think we just have more fondness for the players of our youth. I agree. And I think now that the Rams are not in St. Louis, they're back home. I think that's another reason I think Marshall Faulk recedes into history. Steve Ramirez, Youngblood on the crack sea. Okay. All right. Let's see, where are we at, guys? I thought that's what you meant. Crazy Horse Mountain. There you go. There we go. No, maybe I didn't know what you meant then. All right. I was thinking of something else. Okay, guys, we are at the 44-minute mark. I have got to go to a meeting. I've got a book deadline, believe it or not, that I have to deal with. I got my wife to murder and Gilder to blame for it. So I got to let you guys go here. Thank you so much for clicking on. Bill, in the year 2034, do you see McVay still coaching the Rams? I don't. I think if the Rams go on a run these next 3 years that they're projecting with Stafford, I think he's going to step down at the end of it, right? By that time, he'll have had 10 plus years on the gig, and he just moves on, right? And stuff. I don't foresee it going that long. It would be great if it did. Rick Mayer, thank you so much. It's in. I'm just waiting for the cover right now. My ISBN, my barcode, all these things are all ready. Forward is written, or the about the author, all that stuff's done. It's loaded, it's laid out. It's just waiting for one more button, and I'm just letting my guy give it time for my guy to do his thing. It's a short book, about 100 200 pages. It's a novel. It talks a lot of Ram history, but it's basically about 4 friends trying to watch the Rams in the NFC Championship game, and all the people that keep disrupting them. You ever have riffraff try to interrupt you while you're watching a game? People that are jinxes. Yeah. So it's kind of like that. I do appreciate you saying that, Rick. Willie Bowen, Eric Dickerson, Lawrence McCutcheon, Cleveland Gary, John Capoletti, Mike Gooman, Barry Redden, Daryl Henderson, my favorite LA Rams running backs and fullbacks. Bro, where's Colin Bryant? Where's Wendell Tyler? I need some Wendell Tyler in there. All right. The home run guy. Okay, guys, I do have to go now. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. Love Dickerson, but Falk could do everything. Absolutely, he could. That's why I asked the age-old question, what if Dickerson got a chance to play with Mike Martz? Could they, because Dickerson had pretty good hands, could they have flashed him out into some other creative ways of doing things? We know John Robinson wasn't going to, but that would have been pretty cool. All right, guys, I got to run. God bless. Take care. Have a great weekend. We will see you Monday.